So sorry, once again, Jai Bhim Namo Buddhaya. We will be now starting our second session, second lecture, second lesson on what we consider to be a very important part of our course on Buddhist philosophy. And what I'm going to do now is to share a PowerPoint presentation. And as our scheme is, we will make it more interactive, so you are free to intervene whenever you want, and we will have a lot of reflection, because I think that is the best way to go about such kind of the courses. So let me share with you the PPT. So this is the PPT. Can you all of use, can you see it? Can you see it?
It requires a little bit adjustment. Half the screen is on one side, not visible. Now it's okay.
Yeah. Can you see it fully now?
Yes, yes.
Sure?
Yes.
Okay. Is it full screen now?
Not
Hello?
on the full screen mode, actually.
It's a slide mode.
It's a slide mode.
Slide mode, no? But you can see it on your whatever devices you are using, full screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because if I make it full screen, it turns out now, how is it?
Some portion is hiding on the left side.
Really? I don't know what is happening now.
Now it's okay.
Okay.
Now it's okay.
Okay. So let's go with this. So our lesson today is Anātman and looking for the self. As I said, we are going to try to make it more interactive, and I'm going to go into some of the concepts at length, and I hope at the end of the session we will have learned a lot on how we can look for our own selves. So let's begin. As our philosophy of this lecture is come and see, yehi passiko. Do not believe, do not reject, observe carefully. So whatever we are learning or whatever we are studying, we just have to bear in mind that we don't have to believe anything that is being shared here, or even your own beliefs. Do not reject, even don't reject something at first go. Observe carefully. So our rule is observe carefully. So whatever we do in Buddhist philosophy or in Buddhist uh, investigation, our scheme is to observe carefully. So what we are going to do today, and it might come as a shock to people who are not familiar with this idea of no self or Anātman, is a kind of a shock. And I think that shock is very important. And the old certainty of I is placed under inquiry. So what we are going to do today is we are going to place our old certainty about me, I, myself into under inquiry. And we are not going to just try to do it theoretically. We will try to do it in a spirit of inquiry, in the spirit of trying to understand something at length, in the spirit of really understanding something as it is. So let's go forward to the slide. So you see, whenever we look at even our own photographs, and whatever age we are of now, we get a shock that how we turn from a child into an adult and a growing uh, you know elderly person. Can you please show me stop doing this on the screen? So you see, this is very, very interesting. Whenever we look at the photograph of Baba Saheb Ambedkar, what is this? So whenever we look at, see photograph of Baba Saheb Ambedkar, we see him as a young person, and then we see him as an elderly person. It's true for everybody. At some point of time, if we look at our own lives, we grow from a child, an infant to a child, and from child to a teenager, young person, and we grow old. This is what happens with us. So what exactly remains identical? So that is the inquiry that we should be launching our mind into, is what exactly remains identical. Whether it's body that remains identical, or whether it's memory, is it our belief, is it our emotion, language, personality, all change, everything changes. So what exactly remains identical? I think that's a very important question that we will be looking into. So what I thought, we just look at this question. What exactly remains identical? In other words, what am I? Instead of asking who am I, we will pose a question like what am I? And what exactly remains identical? So I think it's a very important inquiry that we can launch our mind into. And I think we will reflect on this for a bit, maybe about 30 seconds. Just reflect on your life, from your childhood till now. And you just think about it for 30 seconds. What exactly remains identical? So what do you think about this? I think we can have a little bit of discussion on that. What do you think remains identical? Any reflections, any ideas? Anyone can
Priority
speak.
to
Yes.
priority to priority to personality or things, possessions.
I didn't get it. Can you please clarify more?
Yeah, priority to the identity means priority to persons, things. So claim recognition, no. That's what that I, whatever we need, it we feels that possessiveness, no. That comes I, that ego concept, no.
Okay. Good. But my other question is, the point that we are going reflecting upon is, what is it that, that doesn't change? Please don't write,
Yeah,
because, if you want to talk. Please don't write anything on the chat. So you see, I think what we are reflecting here from our childhood to our, whatever age we are. So what is it that has never gone any change? I understand that, our priorities for the material possessions, that maybe in the childhood we wanted something else. Now, as we grow up, we wanted something else. Our priority change. But our question is very fundamental here, is what is it that is identical from our childhood to here?
identically is Rupa
Huh?
name. Identically is Rupa name.
So you want to say that, whatever has remained constant from our childhood to here
Yeah,
is our
yeah.
name.
That is he claiming, the possessive claiming. No, I am so and so. I am coming
Okay.
from this community. I am having the pride of this caste, like this. No, the
Okay.
possessive mind, that is called ID. When we go taken into unity one single, no, then I became I.
Okay.
This is
So you
mine,
good,
like
good,
this.
good, good, good. So you are saying that, your identity has remained the same. Do you want to say that, or just
Yeah,
the
I didn't.
name?
No, no. For the social sake or material sake, identity is same. So they claiming legacy, no.
Hmm.
That is what. Otherwise, the meta or nam ruba, no
No,
name.
let's not get
Uh,
into technicalities as such now. This is a very
yeah.
basic question that I want to raise. I don't want to get into
Yes.
any
Yes.
terminologies. It's a very
Yeah.
fundamental question, that our bodies have changed, our appearances have
Yes.
changed,
Yes. Yes.
our
Yes.
our thinking has changed,
Understanding,
our
observation,
understanding
everything
has
change.
changed, our belief system has changed. So what has remained identical? So one thing you are saying that, your name as, whoever you are, right?
The
I think our memory,
change
our
of belief,
memory.
change of belief and understanding is not identity because it is changing now.
Okay, so
Identity
even
is
your
that it's
I
identity
think
like,
is
our
changing.
memories remain from childhood to old
yes,
days.
So you mean to say, Mahendra sir, that our memory is constant, right? Your is permanent. It never
It's
changes.
increasing day by day. Huh. Yes.
Okay, increasing or decreasing?
Uh,
both. Sometimes we forget it, no, our memory.
oh, that is, we find it
Diminish.
difficult to retrieve, but it's addition.
Right, 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 right.
Record is being created of memories.
So you want to say that your memory is like it's not permanent, but that create a semblance of who you are, right? Well, that's what you
Yeah.
want to say, Mahendra sir?
Yes. Yes. More or less.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, okay, okay. Any other reflections? I don't want to enter into terminologies as such. I want you to ground yourself on in your experiences. So we have all grown old from our childhood to whoever we are or whatever age we are. So the question is, what has remained identical, isn't it? Whether our body, it has completely undergone change. If it is about our mind is changing continuously all the time. About emotions, they are not constant. So the fundamental question that we have been discussing here in terms of our experiences, and this is, as we said, we begin with the inquiry. We don't accept anything. We don't accept anything even if the Buddha had said it. Right? That's what the Buddha himself said. He asked us to investigate. He asked us to understand. He asked us to reflect upon. So that's what we are doing here. And in terms of really, what am I? Okay. So any other reflections from anybody about this particular question? If not, we will go a little bit further and then we will come back. We can always come back to our questions. Okay. So this is what has been discussed here is like what exactly remains identical. So we know that our body changes, our memory changes, our belief system changes, our emotions change, language change. The way we were speaking before 5 years, we are speaking differently. Our personality change. So this is what we are reflecting on. So I just put it in order to help me to have a cue on what we are going to do. So you see, when we look for the self, and I think this is very important for us to, uh, how we can look for ourselves. So you have all, supplied the categories as to what we are, what we are in terms of, our body and mind. So you see, whenever we look at mirror, I think this is a very beautiful exercise, and it's very important exercise that the Buddha taught to Rahula to reflect back. So the physical, the way we can reflect back physically in a sense of material thing is a reflection on mirror. So this question is very important when we look at ourselves in the mirror. What exactly we are looking at, isn't it? And who is there looking into the mirror? So this is just a point to reflect. I'm going to go further because I think there is a lot of ground that we need to cover. So as I said, and as we discussed, the body is changing all the time. The body changes, as we know, the researchers in biology, the cells change all the time. Then age changes the form. Like we were tiny when we were born. Now we are, of a particular length. So the question is the body the self? So most
So
of us, yes,
excuse me, sir.
yes.
That the slide is half cut, no, not in full. It is not visible fully.
Is it true for everybody?
It's visible. The font is small, but
No,
it's
no, no, no.
visible.
That
Now,
slide cut. It is not. I cannot see the full form.
now can you see?
Complete. Only body and form, self. Like few
I
words only.
Can you see it now?
we can
Right.
see.
Maybe minimize it, sir. Then it will come.
Now
No,
it's okay. Now it is okay. Okay.
no, no, no. No.
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, okay, okay.
Can you
Okay.
see now?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Wait. Because There's a problem here, some technical problems.
No issue. Please go ahead.
No, it was
Okay.
full
Okay.
screen earlier. It was
Now is okay or what?
Okay, sir. Okay. Okay. Okay.
For everybody? Okay. So the body, as we know, changes all the time. So the question is the body the self? And most of us identify ourselves with our bodies, right? And we think that our body is our self. And that is what is the common perception. That's what the Buddha said, that we identify ourselves with the body. And then we all know that the body changes all the time. The cells change, age changes the form. So let's look at the mind. When we look at the mind, we know that the mind changes all the time. The thoughts arise, thoughts pass, mood shifts. And then we look at our stream of thoughts. Do we find any permanent owner of the stream of thought? So that's about mind. And we were, of course, discussing about memories. But if we look at the memories carefully, our memories are not permanent. And any psychologist will tell you that how the memories are edited, how some of them are forgotten, how some of them are reconstructed, right? So if memory changes, is memory the self? That's a very important question. So can we find what we say, me or myself in the memories? The answer, if we reflect upon, if we inquire into, the answer is no. So if I say that my personality is myself, that's who I am, then we know that our personality also changes over the period of time. Our temperament changes, our habits change, our desires change, our values change. So what remains the same? So can we say that, this is my personality from since I was born, it has remained the same? We cannot say that. So where is the owner? So, we live as if, somebody is owning this body and mind. And the Buddha has particularly asked us this question to reflect on, where is the owner? So this is not a conclusion. Don't take it on the face of it. It's a question that we all need to answer. And if we can answer this question, this will solve a great deal of a problem, because we have seen in the first lesson that the suffering comes because we do not see properly, because we do not see clearly. So what is it that we do not see clearly? Is the nature of self. Okay, so that is the root cause of our problem. The moment we see that, there is no self, a lot of our problems are gone. So that's the inquiry that we have to launch ourselves into, that where is the owner? This is not a conclusion. This is a question that we should bear in mind. So just to give you an illustration about the river, and we know that we call a river a Ganges, or, Godavari, or whatever we call it. But the river is continuously flowing, and there is a continuity without permanence. There is nothing permanent in the river. Everything changes. But we give it an identity. We call it a Ganga or Yamuna or whatever name to that particular river. So there is an identity without substance. And that's, I think, the great insight of the Buddha, 2500 years back, that he found that there is no prime substance. All the philosophies were trying to find out the prime substance. So the Greeks were thinking about, water as the prime substance, or air as the prime substance, or fire as a prime substance. But the Buddha said that there is no prime substance. Everything is process. Everything is interdependent. And that's what we can see for ourselves as we inquire further in this lecture today. So this is just to give you an illustration of a river. And we know that, the river of identities, can be compared to the river itself, that in the spring, the river is different. In the summer, the river is different. In autumn, the river is different. In winter, the river is different, and this is what happens with us. We have a same name. We cling on to the name, but if we look at our body and mind, it's changing all the time. So, the important lesson that we can draw from here is continuity is not permanence. So if something is continuing from this to that, to that, to that, that to that, it doesn't mean that, that continuity, though it gives the semblance of permanence, it's not permanent. That's what the river will tell you. When we look at the river, it's never ever constant. It cannot remain stationary. Just, to give you an example from the physics, the moment the photon halts or stops, the light is gone. The light is there only when, it's moving. The photon is moving. So you see, what I'm trying to get it to you is, though there is a semblance of continuity, we have to realize deep within that there is no permanent. The things are not permanent. So the self appears continuous, yet everything is in constant change. So that is the bottom line that we can pick up from here. So, this is just, if you look at any current of water and we can reflect, this is considered to be a very beautiful meditation in the Buddhist tradition to reflect on the body of water like a river or ocean. And we can see that, it's never still. It's all the time changing. Every drop is moving moment by moment. The river flows, but only the name remains in our mind. Right? So, this is a great illustration to understand what we are talking about. And I think if we have to pick up one important sentence from this lesson is this, that continuity does not require permanence. Very important. So the things continue, it's like, if you play a carom, you strike one piece, and its energy is shared with another piece, and that's how it the things move. Just like that, whenever you hit a ball, you provide it with the initial momentum, and then that ball the ball continue to move in a particular trajectory. So continuity does not require permanence. That's what is the Buddha's greatest message. And we see this all continuity in terms of the patterns. Like, the DNA is a particular pattern, but it's never constant. You see the weather, it's particular pattern. The flower is a particular pattern. But the pattern does not require, or continuity does not require permanence. I think this is a very, very great insight of the Buddha. And as we know that a person is not a thing, we cannot find any substance. If we explore deeply, we cannot find any substance. The person is an event or a process. So we are not an illusion. We are not Maya. We are not eternal substance. That's the point that I want to drive home here. That the Buddha never said that, this is all, illusory. The Buddha said that, the person is not a thing. The person is an event. And we know that, everything happens because depending on many other things. So it's very important to bear in mind these points, because these are the points where people get confused about what the Buddha exactly meant when he was teaching the principles of Anātman. He didn't say that we don't exist. He didn't say that the world doesn't exist. I think that's a very beautiful insight that the Buddha had. The Buddha said that the world is not what we what we perceive as, and we are going to look into how we get this perceptual constancy, all the time, even when the world is changing. How do we perceive the world as something which doesn't change, and that's related to the structure of our mind, the way our cognition is structured. So it's a very important point that the person is not a thing, the person is an event, and we are going to look into the meaning of this word very deeply. So we are not an illusion, we are not also an eternal substance. There is nothing eternal in the world. There is nothing eternal inside us. So let's now look at the Buddha's analysis, and they are the five aggregates, as we know, Pancha Upadan, Pancha Skandha. They are not dogma. We don't have to accept them. They are just the categories for us to launch our inquiry into. If you look at the five skandhas, they can be divided into many constituents elements. Like, for example, if we want to divide the Nama skandha, we can divide into many forms. Traditionally there are four, and then the further four in the Abhidhammic tradition can be subdivided, subcategorized further. So what we have to do is, we don't have to treat five aggregates as a dogma. They are not dogma. They are an investigative instrument. And this is how the Buddha has investigated, our who we are. So you see the form, rupa, in traditional Pali or Sanskrit, Buddhist Sanskrit. So, the material body and its basis, like flesh, posture, breath, aging, all the vulnerabilities of the body. If we inquire into that, the body part of it, we have to ask the question, is this permanent? Is our body permanent? So this is, this is what we have to observe, and we are going to spend some time in observing that. So the material body and its basis, flesh, posture, breath, aging, and vulnerability, is this permanent? And is this independent? Is our body independent of, external things? If we do not eat food, if we do not drink water, what is going to happen to our body? If we do not breathe for, some say a few seconds, what is going to happen to our body? So the questions that the Buddha asked us to ask in related to body is this permanent? Is our body permanent? Is our body independent? And can it be fully controlled? Can we fully, completely control our body? The answer is no. If I had a choice to control my body, if I could control my body, I would never let it age. I would never let my skin turn into sagging skin, or I would not let my hair recede. So you see, we cannot control our body. We cannot control the aging. We cannot, they claim that we can extend our aging, maybe so, but we cannot control death. Death is bound to happen. So you see, this is, if you look into the five skandhas, particularly the Rupa skandha of we have to launch our inquiry like this. Then feelings, of course, we all feel pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, or neutral feelings, or tones that color experience before a story forms. So you see, depending on our liking and disliking, or total ignorance, we form a various stories, prapancha. And so, but if we look at the feelings, does feelings stay? Suppose if I'm happy now, is it confirm that in the next moment I will not be sad or have a neutral feeling? So our feelings change all the time. Can we command our feelings? Because our feelings also arises depending on the causes and conditions. And can we command it? Can we say, if I am feeling sad now, I force myself to feel happy now? And is feeling the owner? I think it's a very important question. These three things, permanent, independent, and completely controllable. I think these are the very important questions that, must arise in terms of our five skandhas. Now, perception, sadhya. We recognize something, we label something, identification, the mind says this is that. But we know that, do labels change? The things that we label today as X, do they remain as X? They change all the time. Our interpretations of certain things change. We interpreted, or we looked at somebody like this today, our interpretation might change tomorrow. So is perception independent of conditions? No, because the perceptions arise depending on the causes and conditions, because we have the sense organs, and because this is all possibility, this has arisen because of a particular evolutionary history. You see, so permanent, independent, and completely controllable. We cannot completely control our perception. The moment we open our eyes, we cannot but see the colors, the world, the forms. The moment our ears are open, we cannot but hear. If our tongue comes in contact with certain things, we cannot but taste. So can we completely control? No, we cannot. Then there are the mental formations. We are going to go in depth into that, because this is just the second lesson. We have another 8 remaining, and in those lectures we are going to go into this very deeply as to how our mental habits are formed, how our sanskaras are formed, and they are all about intentions, habits, reactions, expectations, impulses, and volitions. So can we say our habits are fixed? We cannot, because our habits change all the time. Can intention be trained? Can we train ourselves to intend particular thing? Sometimes intention just happens depending on the causes and conditions. So if it can be trained, is it eternal? Our mental formations, are they eternal? No, they change all the time. So this is a key, this triad of a question: permanent, independent, completely controllable. They are the key to understand this nature of the sankhara. And of course, our consciousness, our consciousness changes all the time. Like we are aware of something now, in another moment we are aware of something. At the same time, we are seeing something, we are hearing something, we are thinking something, we are knowing something. So awareness of objects through sense doors and mind, seeing, hearing, thinking, knowing. Is consciousness one solid thing? No, because consciousness changes all the time. It's impermanent. Because it's impermanent, that's why we can perceive. So is consciousness one solid thing? The answer is no. Because we our consciousness divide into the eye consciousness, the ear consciousness, thinking consciousness, knowing consciousness, and so on and so forth. So does it arise with object? This is a very important question. We are going to look into this question. How does the consciousness arise? So these are the questions that are meant for the upcoming lectures. And is it an unchanging witness? Like, is there something which is witnessing what is happening to us now? Then what is it that is witnessing the witness? Then what is it that is witnessing the witnessing of the witness? You see, so it goes into regression. So we cannot really say that somebody is witnessing something, isn't it? And we are also going to look at why we feel that there is a witness. These are very deep questions that have been explored by the Buddhist philosopher, starting with the Buddha. And I think, eventually when we reach to those points, this course is going to become more interesting, more practical. So let's hold on for till then. But, these are the very important questions. Our consciousness changes all the time. It is not independent. We cannot segregate our, consciousness from other, elements. It's like, it's paticca samutpanna. They arise together, co-arise. So this is just a visualization. I made it in terms of a lotus visualization. If we look at our form, rupa, the physical body and material world, the feelings, vedana, they are changing all the time. Pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings that arise. Then consciousness, vijnana, the basic awareness of an object knowing. Then mental formation, the sankharas that we are going to go look into deeply. Thoughts, intentions, habits, emotions, and will. And of course, perception, sadhya, the recognition, labeling, and interpretation of things. These five arise together, they change together. None is the self. No permanent self can be found if we inquire into that deeply. So this is just a code. Form is a body, feeling is tone, and perception is recognition, formation, habits, and intention, consciousness, awareness of object. Always ask each of us, ask of each whether it's permanent, independent, completely controllable. These are, I think, the three important questions that we will be looking into. So what I'm going to do now, or what we are going to do today, is we are going to have a 5 minutes reflection so that, our lecture is not just a lecture, because we are going to observe things deeply. So you see, for the next 5 minutes, we would all observe, directly observe, just like some kind of a contemplative sequence, and it's a guided contemplative sequence. So wherever we are, whatever you are doing, just, sit quietly. You don't necessarily have to close your eyes, but if you can lower your eyes a little bit and listen to, the contemplative sequence, just prepare yourself to sit quietly for 5 minutes, not more than that. We'll just have a reflection. And so yeah, if you are settled a bit, then just bring your attention to breathing. Just observe your breathing. Don't force yourself. Just let the breathing happen naturally. You just observe it. Then if you like, you can observe various sensations arising on your body. the pressure, the warmth, the sensations happening through your senses, like sounds around you. If your body is moving a bit, you can observe that movement. Just observe sensations. If you want to observe further, observe the thoughts. Don't get entangled, don't follow them out. Just observe the thoughts and emotions. It's just a small exercise I wanted to conduct so that we will lead to the question that, and we will uh, reflect on this. Did you find an observer or did observation simply occur? So let's look into this question. Let's discuss on this, that when you try to observe your breathing, when you try to observe your sensations, and when you try to observe your thinking, thoughts, and emotions, did you find an observer? Let's discuss on this a bit before we go further.
I think observation simply occurred
Okay.
because I could see ideas going, thoughts coming, going, coming, going like this.
Okay.
And so,
Good, good, good. This is the essence of Buddhist meditation, to observe whatever happening in our experiences. You see, so we begin with observing our breathing in a sense of, we begin our observation of our body. Okay, so then there are sensations in the body. We hear something, we see something. So we can be mindful all the time. Buddhist way of meditation is not just sitting on the cushion. We can be mindful all the time. We can be aware of our thoughts and emotions. So the
but
question.
emotions don't change so frequently, I think, during meditation.
Okay,
This was my feeling.
good, good, good. Good, good. But the question is, did you find any observer? Did you find anything, separate from our experiences? Or was, there was an experience and somebody was experiencing it? That is the question.
That's a difficult thing to answer.
Yes. So, just try, that's the reflection that we have to, do.
Mm, mm.
These are very important questions and these are very important observations that if we, begin to look into them very carefully, we can see for ourselves what the Buddha has been teaching all along. So anybody would like to reflect or comment? Feel free, because this is a class where you can, there should be no inhibitions. Whatever you think, you're free to talk.
It is quite nature for cross thought. No, when we are simply observing,
Hmm.
we will have cross thought.
We have.
Cross thoughts. So we so many things, thoughts coming. No, our thing. No.
Right.
Uh,
They are going on all the time, but only when we pause and observe them, we notice that there are so many thoughts going on.
yeah, so many thoughts. No, it is quite natural. When we are sitting in observation, no, of the breathe or mindfulness, no, then kind of. So we have to subsume. Then only we can go next investigation and next level.
The mind settles automatically. If we sit
Yes.
quietly, if
Yeah,
we if
yeah, yeah.
we if we sit with our body for some time, the mind naturally
Mm,
settles.
that level. Right.
Yes. Anybody?
Mangesh bhai, Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim, Rakesh bhai.
See, it's something like a quantum that logic. When the observer observes, it looks like a particle. Otherwise, it's waves.
Okay.
So both the senses cannot be sensed at the same time.
Okay.
Maybe this is like the theory, quantum theory reflects the there is at the same time there is a particle and at the same time there is wave. But
Okay.
when observer observes, that becomes particle only. So maybe such kind of sensation, such kind of feelings when we observe inside.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
So
this is from my side.
okay. Your experiment decides what is out there, right? That is
Right,
what
right,
quantum
right,
mechanics says. The way you measure something,
right.
appears to you. It's
So
all about measurement.
maybe this means the experience may be different from person to person,
Okay.
but this is my view towards this kind of observations.
Okay. So you want to say that the observer is different from what is observed?
No. Observer is not different. Observer observes the things.
Yeah, but this
And
language is, is there an observer? Is there anything in us that is observe something? These are very important questions that we are going to look into. But let's open them up. Even today is okay a bit. That who is, is there an observer? Is there, our consciousness is out there and the world out there?
see, when we are sensing from our sensible organs, so there should be someone, there should be something, maybe that is consciousness or something that may observe that particular sensors, the input from the sensors.
Okay, so you want to say that there is an observer who observes the inputs from the senses,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Right?
Yes.
I think it is the consciousness itself
Mm.
about which we become aware. Yes, we are observing this, someone is observing it, or it's a part of us only in our thinking process. Consciousness sometimes is our thoughts only, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, I think this is a very interesting question that, if for example, we have this semblance of I or me, and we create our world around it. But if you look at the animals and all, the question, is very interesting. Whether do they have a sense of similar, naming process? Like, do they name the things in the world? Like we name this is dog, this is cat. this is this is that, right? The process of naming is taking place in us all the time. And the question is, like, because there is, if we say there is an observer, but the observer cannot remain constant, because if something is remaining constant, it cannot perceive what is impermanent, right? Right? Something, right?
Right,
So you
right.
see, the point is, the whole theory of observer is, what we will be looking into. So I think the question is, even if we look at our breathing, for example, so is there anybody, is there something which is breathing, or breathing is just a process, natural process that is happening,
Yes, it's natural process.
right? Nobody is breathing inside, right? Nobody wants it to breathe. If we cannot control breathing, if I stop breathing now for a few seconds, I'm gone,
Right,
right? It's an autonomous process that is happening, depending on the causes and conditions, right?
right.
So there is no observer. Observation is happens just like, you see, just like an event in the world. And I think that's what makes the Buddhist philosophy very, very interesting and very, very contemporary. So before we move on, I would like to hear from other people what is their view on this.
As such, there is no observer because Nam and Roop change in a fraction of a second, trillionth of a time.
Okay.
So there is no permanent observer which can observe the thing
Right.
because observer is physical element and mental element which is in constant state of change due to impermanence.
Okay. But still we hear, we see the world, we see the colors, right? We see the mountains, we see the rivers. And I think that's a very important question. That's what I'm going to look into in the future classes is, we have this very wrong notion of world out there and I'm out here.
Oh,
Isn't
sir,
it?
you asked us to sit for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And we described what we observed, what I observed,
Yes.
what I saw.
Yes.
Means, though things are changing constantly.
Mm.
So our interpretation of things is also, we are from a memory we are telling. 5 minutes earlier, this happened. 5 years. But some consciousness, part of consciousness only it tells us. Because
Okay.
we are not different from that.
Okay, good. Good. Okay. So anybody has anything to reflect on or share with us? Feel free. There's no nobody's going to judge you. There is nothing right or wrong. If not, then we will move on to our further reflection. Let's do it. Okay. So did you find an observer? This is a question that we have to bear in our mind all the time. Okay. Or did observation simply occur? So this is a question, lifelong reflection for us. So there is, of course, the case of Nagasena. He was a very great monk, and Milinda. The Milind Prashna begins with that. And we know that Milinda was so learned a man that he could defeat anybody in the debate. And it happened so that, even he defeated some of the Buddhist monks. But the Buddhists were scared of having an argument with him. But Nagasena, the great Buddhist monk, the great Sena, the great Naga, whose name was Sena, he took up the challenge, and there it begins with a philosophical inquiry. So the story, some of you might be knowing, and I don't mind telling you the story. So uh, the King Milinda comes to know that Nagsena is willing to debate with him. Nagsena with his lot of followers. The King Milinda approaches him, and they have a discussion as to you know how they should conduct their debate. It's very interesting, a lesson in how to conduct a debate. But the most interesting part of the Milinda questions of Milinda is this, that Milinda asks him, "What's your name?" So he says, "My name is Nagasena." Then, he asked him whether your body is Nagasena. The Nagasena says no. Whether your hair is Nagasena, he says no. Whether your hand is Nagasena, he says no. Then, legs, similarly, he deconstruct the total body and mind of Nagasena. And, the answer is always no. So, Milin says that, you are lying to me, that, you are Nagasena, because when I asked you whether this is Nagasena or that is Nagasena, you couldn't answer. That means you are telling me a lie. There is no Nagasena, but yet you said that my name is Nagasena. And then there is a famous counterbalance to that. Uh, Nagasena inquires him, how did he come? Milind says, I came by chariot. And then he asks, okay, you came by chariot. So he says whether the axle is the chariot. He says no. Then, he completely deconstruct the chariot. And, he says, after deconstruction, there is no chariot. So how did you come? So then Nagasena tells him that, there is no Nagasena, but only for the practical purposes, there is a designation called Nagasena. Nagasena is not a metaphysical entity. You see, this is a very deep insight. If we understand this, when I look at me, I look at myself and I see Mangesh, but the Mangesh is just a designation. There is no metaphysical substance called Mangesh. You see, so it's a very, very interesting sort of the inquiry into Buddhist philosophy, just to tell you the chariot deconstruction, the complete chariot. Where is the chariot? Remove the wheel. Is this the chariot? Remove the axle. Is this the chariot? Remove the seat. Is this the chariot? Scatter all the parts. Where did the chariot go? The chariot is nowhere to be found among the parts. Where did the chariot go? The insight is the chariot is conventionally real, but not as a separate independent essence or substance. So chariot is just the designation upon parts. Just as the chariot is a name for the collection of parts, so too is the self a designation upon the five aggregates. So you see, when we segregate this, when we disintegrate, we do not find, when we deconstruct, we do not find any entity called Mangesh or entity called Mahendra or entity called Rakesh or Alka. There is no entity like that. These are just designation shorthands. Even when I say I am, even the I is a linguistic short form. This is how deep the Buddhist philosophy has entered into. The philosophy now, the modern philosophy is catching up to that. So you see, these are all, linguistic shorthands, symbols pointing out to something. But, beyond this symbol, there is nothing metaphysical entity. There is no soul that is permanent, which can be designated, this is me. And I think this is very deep insight that we have to look into. So you see, I didn't insert the image here. I should have. But you see, when we assemble, this is applicable to everything. We call it radio. But when you deconstruct the radio, we don't find radio, right? Car. This is just a designation given to that particular assembly. If we remove the door, that's not car, isn't it? So even the door is a designation. I think this is a very fundamental insight. The construction, deconstruction, analysis, disintegration, and then, integration. So you see, this is a very, very interesting device for us to think through it. So what the Buddha, is saying, that designation is not essence. So the words, the names, and the process of naming is taking all that. That's why it's called nama. Because we are always naming things, we are always labeling things. And when we label things, we think that they are permanent. But the nature of the thing is that they are impermanent. But because of the labeling, we come up with these concepts. So designation is not essence. The chariot is useful. The chariot is not an independent substance. There is no independent substance called a chariot. It's a part, it's a compound of so many things. And those so many things are compound of so many things. Right? So it's a very, very, very beautiful example to look at. So no permanent self doesn't mean no person. This is very interesting. Buddhism is not nihilistic. It doesn't mean that, if there is no self, doesn't mean permanence, it doesn't mean that I don't exist or the world don't exist. It is a very deep insight. So the Buddha never says that nothing exists, nobody exists, ethics is meaningless, responsibility disappears. So if we say, oh, there is no me, I can do anything, I can, behave irresponsibly, no. Because the Buddha's question is like this: permanence, independence, unchanging essence, ultimate ownership. Because when we have a change of perception about who we really are, what are we, then it changes the complete way we look at the world and the way we behave in the world. So you see, the Buddha does not say nothing exists. No sutra says like that, nothing exists or nobody exists. Ethics is meaningless. We have seen the Prajna directly leads to Shila in the first lecture. Prajna is insight into the nature of the world, and that informs how we behave in the world, and responsibility disappears. The Buddha questions permanence. Buddha says that you cannot find anything permanent that you can cling to. The Buddha says we cannot find anything independent that we can segregate from the world and say that this is independent. Everything is interdependent. We cannot find anything unchanging essence, and we cannot find ultimate ownership. That's not possible if we inquire into. That's what the Buddha says. So just to as we near the end of our class today, I just wanted to bring in some Ambedkarite reflection. If identities are conditioned, they can be transformed. If caste presents itself as eternal, philosophy must investigate that claim, isn't it? So that notion of caste is just a label. That's what Baba Sahib Ambedkar says in the Annihilation of Caste. That caste is a label. And so long as this label exists, everything, the whole system exists. And the labels have been given certain, purity and impurity. So the moment, the person says a Brahmin or Pandit, people think how lofty they are. It's just naming, it's just labeling. If you look deeply, there is nothing like, superior or inferior. We cannot have this hierarchy of superiority and inferiority. So what happens? Let's look into this ego factory. This is what is, we are creating all the time. So the Buddha says the self is not a thing. The self is an activity. It's a very important reflection. The self is an activity, and we make meaning. Our mind makes meaning through stories, labels, judgments, beliefs, and interpretations. And what is the input for processing the stories, labels, judgment, beliefs, and interpretation? Of memories of the past we carry. Comparison. We are always comparing this thing with that. Fear. We have a fear. So we want to protect ourselves. Desire. We have some certain desires. Then recognition. We want validity from others. And then, we want to guard our own stories, our own ideologies. And, that fits into our mind. Output is continuously manufactured. I. That is the story of I. We are manufacturing I all the time, all the time, all the time. The I you experience is not found. It is made moment by moment, condition by condition. And that is what is all about, the whole labeling, the whole designation that we see, the whole, caught up in the wrong views, the wrong ideologies, isn't it? That's why Buddha's mind never holds on to any concepts, never holds on to any ideology. He just uses it for the betterment of the world, to end the suffering of the world. The Buddha doesn't hold on to anything. So that is a very interesting Buddha is all about non-grasping, but functioning in the world from that position of non-grasping. So, before we end, I'm going to just put up this, that whenever I say I, what am I actually referring to? This is a very important question that we all need to live with this question. When I say I, when somebody insults me, then what is really hurt? It's a very important question. If somebody says something bad to us, what is it in us that is hurt? So very important question. This reflection itself, this question itself, that when I say I, what am I actually referring to? What is in my experience I'm referring to? And if that reference to I is gone, what happens? I think these are very, very interesting questions that are there. I will stop here. Actually, this is the good point in our lecture to stop. But if you want to share any reflection, I think we can take another few minutes for the sharing of reflections.
In the lecture, you said I is an event.
Yes.
Then we have to remember that. When we have no answer, we should remember that answer.
Yes. Yes. So anything on whatever we discussed so far?
Can you show me slide number 26?
Slide number 26, you want to see? This one?
26 number slide
This is my
in your PPT.
This is my 26 number slide.
No, I am not seeing.
Yes. I'm going to share this PPT
You
with
have to go to okay.
any of these, because I got in total 40 slides and this is my 26. Okay, so is that all for today?
It's very serious thing, a serious question, last one.
Yes.
Who is I?
What am I? This is the
Who
question
am
that is
I?
the beginning of
Who am I?
inquiry in some Zen Buddhist traditions. The question of who am I?
Yes.
What am I?
So it will take entire life to understand.
Yes. So thank you so much all for joining in today. We will meet next week with more
Thank you
and
very
more
much.
deeper questions and
Thank you.
deeper. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gabriel.